I'm going to weigh in or give my 2 cents regarding the Ravens' first part of training camp, beginning with what Todd Monken said about the offense, namely that they aren't very good yet. I get the impression that most of us think the offense is good if we hear that the quarterback went 15 for 20 or 18 for 24 and 11 on 11s. We think that's a good day. I don't believe Monken sees things in that way. I don't think he thinks that same way as he installs a brand new offense, brand new to the Ravens offense. His ideas of a well-run offense are much more in-depth, much more precise as far as what he expects to see. Some of the things that Monken might be watching when I'm looking the other way, and I'm just throwing these out as examples. He wants to see whether the tight end blocks a Sam out of one-back protection, rather than seeing an uncovered tackle, taking a potential check to pick up some sort of outside blitz. He wants to see, is the quarterback reading? Is he responsible for A-gap or overload pressures? Is he changing or not changing to a fuller half-slide protection against defensive line overload, for example? Does a running back on a release route read the linebacker or the apex in coverage or the apex's coverage? For example, is he supposed to run a hitch against off coverage? And if so, why did he run an out? Is he decisive? Are these players decisive in their decision-making, in the calls, in their reads? What's the quarterback reading on a 5-step slant? Is the weak side linebacker drifting? Why isn't the wide receiver bending in for 3 steps and then getting upfield against a jam corner on a comeback? Coach DC at All 22 had a great video on Saturday's 9 interception practice, where he supposed that the coaches had ruled out an option for the quarterbacks to break, contain, and run or scramble. In other words, Coach DC put forth that the quarterbacks had to go through progressions. I'm going to subscribe to this. I'm convinced he's right about that. That's exactly what was happening Saturday. When Monken said that this team's offense isn't very good, I immediately understood him to mean that they don't know his offense and it's going to be a while before they do. The quarterbacks on this team have to know the offense better than anyone. On top of everything else, the quarterbacks are being asked to make these pre-snap reads and, more importantly, post-snap reads and decisions quickly. Monken doesn't want Lamar at this point to revert to making plays with his legs. Lamar making plays with his legs is almost never a bad thing, but if he is allowed in practice to revert to that, and by proxy the other quarterbacks as well, this will hold them up in nailing down the offense, and this is something Lamar desires to do. So far as the offensive line, I am of the opinion that some of us are overreacting to the bumps and bruises as they too are learning new calls. They're learning to think of protections in a new way and drops in a different way. The verbiage may be the same or carried over to some extent, but it may not be. The tackles in particular have to know whether the quarterback is in a 3, 5, 7-step drop to understand where the quarterback set is. And the quarterback has to be exact in this as well. On top of that, I don't know which players are out there on the field. In general, I'm good with Ronnie Stanley. I'm good with Linderbaum. I'm good with Zeitler. Perhaps to a lesser extent with Moses, but all in all, Moses is a veteran and a pretty good right tackle. It's too early in training camp, and particularly in the evolution of a new offense, to freak out about the line. Now, you can tell or glean certain things in preseason, again, depending on the players who are out there. But Monken is going to be demanding in terms of how this offense is carried out, right down to the letter. It may sound as if I'm overly concerned about the offense and our skill players and offensive line and their ability to pick up this offense. But in truth, I'm really not. I think it's just a matter of time before you start to see this offense click. I would say in the long run, more concerned about the defense than I am the offense. I'm concerned about the depth on the defensive line. I like the players we have, Broderick Washington, Matabike. Both of those guys play their hearts out all the time. Michael Pierce is dominant. I am concerned about Pierce and Brent Urban finishing the season or missing parts of the season due to injury, particularly Pierce. And like I said, I'm concerned about depth. I think we need one more versatile defensive line piece. Chris Wormley is a guy that I think would fit perfectly. I know he had an injury late in the year, but a guy like Chris that can play all up and down the line. And you have to be concerned about the outside linebacker position. To a large extent, it's unproven, and the depth is not good. Most people are pretty concerned about the cornerback room. I think that's fair. Whether you consider a lack of depth or unproven talent, I think that's a fair point.